nutrition in milk and what makes it good. And the way that the presentation has been structured is to actually imagine the back of pack of a milk label, and we will start from energy, protein, fat, carbohydrate, and vitamins and minerals. For each of the section, we will dive down into like facts of why is protein essential, some facts about protein, protein nutrition content claim, protein health claim, and it will be the same type of discussion for each of the nutrients, basically. And then lastly, we will talk about section 4 is some potential halo claims. Section 5, we will talk about the uniqueness of New Zealand milk. What can we say? What can't we say? What potentially can we say? And then lastly, we will have an open discussion. So that's basically the agenda for today. It's quite a lot. And should you have any questions throughout the meeting, how do you want to do it? Annie, do you want everyone to just ask away?
For questions.
Okay, yeah, cool.
Because often when a question comes up, it actually, the answer comes up next. Yeah. So save up the question.
Cool. So I'm just going to move some of this. Down here and here. Okay, over to you, Annie.
Okay. Very goodness. Say hello to Daisy. She's carrying a Daisy.
So you're going to be talking there, so I'll just move right and be closer to you. You might not want to move it just in case.
Hey, that's really close. That's really good, sound-wise.
Okay. Yeah.
Perfect.
Okay. Why is it not working?
We've got a black screen, by the way. Yeah.
Oh, you have a black screen. Oh, no.
Oh.
Yeah.
Here you go.
Why is this not working?
That's good. It's good. It's good. I see Daisy. I presume that's Daisy.
Right, like we've met Daisy. Let's move on to the next one.
Now we only see
Sorry.
her.
Is this the one, Annie? Yeah. Maybe I'll just, how about if I just do it like this? Because I don't think it's
the clicker is not working. Yeah. Okay. So what we will look at is pretty much what Narelle also said. So we'll flick on to that. Next one.
Oh my God, help me out.
You can't do full screen?
Yeah, something weird is happening that it wouldn't allow me to do full screen for some reason.
Yeah, it's good.
How about that?
Yeah, it's fine.
Okay.
Perfect.
Okay, next. Yeah. So dairy goodness has always been recognised in the dietary guidelines in New Zealand and Australia, and I think we've been starting to take it for granted a bit more with other things coming into the scene like plant nets and things like that. We've forgotten how good and important milk is actually for nutrition. So the dietary guidelines don't only have specific guidelines for adults, but particularly, of course, for infants and toddlers, which are growing really fast and need good quality food. Children and young people are also still building their body, and if they're pregnant or breastfeeding, they need a bit more. And older people also have unique needs because their absorption of nutrients sometimes goes down, and they need to be protected from deteriorating. So in those guidelines, what they say is always have some milk and milk products, probably mostly low and reduced fat, but recent research is also indicating that for healthy people, full-fat milk is actually quite fine. It's only when you have underlying maybe health issues that you should move to the low and reduced fat, or if you really are conscious of your calories. So why is milk recommended? If you see on the left-hand side, you should have at least 2 servings of milk and milk products per day. That it doesn't only contain protein, but also vitamins, minerals, and the specific vitamins that are included that come from milk that at the moment probably are not even highlighted on the label are riboflavin, which is B2, vitamins A and D, which are in the fat, so they become less in the lower fat ones, and B12 in particular. There's always calcium, we're all aware of it, but there's also phosphorus, zinc, and iodine as sources in the milk. So what covers those 2 servings? It could be 2 glasses of milk, or 1 glass of milk and some yogurt, or some cheese, or soy milk also classifies. Note that other plant milk is not mentioned. Are we losing some of the bottom? Okay. So there is, if you want more information on dietary guidelines and the evidence behind it of the health benefits, the current Australian dietary guidelines with that link will give you quite a lot more. So more and more evidence is coming out about the health benefits of milk products. And there is some lighter evidence of the reduced risk of heart disease, stroke, cancer, hypertension. So overall, it gives you the image that really dairy products are a healthy food and help you to have a healthy body, less susceptible to other problems. And of course, dairy products is positively associated with bone mineral density, which is why calcium is still a big hero in dairy. Nope, can you?
Having some spectrum.
Yeah. Before I did it again. Was my battery flat or something?
Not doing it. Somebody else, please.
Oh, here we are. So, do we all follow dietary advice?
The right one?
Yeah. Of course we do. I'm going to eat an apple, an egg, 1 baby aspirin and a piece of dark chocolate. Drink 6 glasses of water. Oh, maybe not even 8. 1 glass of red wine, a cup of coffee and a cup of tea, then do 30 minutes of exercise and then go back to sleep for another 8 hours. I like these cartoons. They're ex-KCD. Yeah. Okay, so what's on average in the raw milk? We've covered that in the intro as well. I'll just repeat a bit of that. The big part of is still water that carries it all forward. There's lactose in there, which is your milk sugar, your carbs, the milk fat, as it comes in at roughly 4% in the raw milk. Proteins, between 3.3 and 4%, depending on cows and seasons and things like that. And of those 2 proteins, you may be familiar with casein and whey proteins being mentioned in products. Casein is about most of that, 80%, and 20% is whey protein. Then you've got all your minerals, which is a little bit, but of course we're not talking about grams here, but milligrams typically. And then vitamins. Practically all known vitamins are in milk. Maybe not all at significant levels. Like there is a trace of vitamin C, but it wouldn't be as good a source as eating an orange or having juice. But it is there. So some are really at trace level, and some are there at milligrams. And there is other bits and pieces like enzymes, a bit of organic acid citrate. Citrate is really important for fermentation because it helps you get that nice cultured flavor in cultured butter and buttermilks as part of that. Gases, there's a trace of alcohol, 3 parts per million. You'd have to drink a hell of a lot to get drunk though. Okay, so seasonal variations, of course, that's what we deal with. As cows go through their lactation cycles, the protein goes up and down and the fat goes up and down. And you can see in the mid-season in the winter, it goes up, and then as the new milk kicks in, as the cows have their calves, there's a little bit more protein, sometimes a little bit more early colostrum in there, and then it keeps going down and back up again. And that is being tracked all the time, and I think Nurul said this is from 2016 to 2018. There's some more up-to-date data as well, but I suspect they still follow the similar pattern. Yeah. So when we look at a typical short nutrition panel, so if we look at if we did the 2 servings as 2 glasses of milk, this is what a typical label maybe would look like. We'd have a lot of calcium and protein is a good source, but there's actually far more to milk. That is all that is in there. And some you can't claim, like something like all the way down manganese at 0.3%. That's not really a significant source. But there is even some omega-3 in there, and all the different minerals. Look at magnesium, phosphorus, a little bit of iron, not really significant, but there's iodine, vitamin A, B1, B2, B3, B5. There's a whole ream of those B vitamins in there. So you can talk about that, for instance, if you were talking in some communication about the value of milk, you could bring up, okay, say you stuck to the dietary guidelines and you had 2 glasses of milk, what good that gives to you? So what is good in dairy? First of all, energy, which particularly for the younger children and infants is needed to fuel the body, keep it going. Protein, which is for building and maintaining your body cells, and also for immunity, it's actually really important. Fats, again, for energy, but also fats for your cells. Components in your cells also have fat in them. The carbohydrate, lactose, which is a slow release sugar actually, so it doesn't instantly hit into the bloodstream, it slowly releases. And then the vitamins, especially B2, the riboflavin, B12, which just gives the yellow color. So it's actually even permitted as a color in the food standards. B12, really important, because that's only really coming through in animal products and is deficient in vegan diets, so they need to take supplements. And then we've got our fat-soluble A and D vitamins, so in the lower fat ones, less so. And the minerals and all the calcium is really, because it's incorporated with protein, it is quite an easy to absorb form. It's not like you're eating chalk tablets. So then the details. So how important is the dairy in the average New Zealand diet? Energy, if I looked in most recent diet surveys and looked what the contribution was of those different groups on the right. So milk covers all milk, but also milkshakes, milk powder, they're grouped into together. Dairy products is your cream, sour cream, yogurt, dairy food, even ice cream, and the dips, and the cheeses obviously is quite self-explanatory. Energy 10%, fat 12%, a little bit more of saturated because saturated is relatively high in dairy. Protein.
Sorry, is this saying that on average,
Yeah.
3 main milk groups make up 9% of the energy in
Yeah.
an average New Zealand diet?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and that is over all age groups combined.
Right.
And these diet surveys actually have it per age groups as well, and there's far too much detail in there. Carbohydrate and sugars is 6 and 14. Potassium, but you can see calcium is 40%. That's how important that aspect is of the diet. Zinc is 12%. A lot of people would not realize how that milk is actually a contributor of zinc in the diet. You'd think it's the milk and meat and other stuff. Vitamin A, 28%. Vitamin B2, 30%. B12, 30%.
That's vitamin A and full fat milk product.
No, but it's from the diet survey, and the diet survey would also have people that eat low-fat products. Yeah, so this is averaged out. So it's the overall contribution. And you can dig further into it. Say if you did communications through a particular age group, then you could look into those details a bit more and get the right information for that. But especially things like B12, which is really important. There is also input of sodium, magnesium, phosphorus, vitamin D, but they didn't do that in the diet survey, that one. There might be in some older ones, but I only looked at the most recent one. What?
Let me try. And just click on it.
I did it before again.
I think going on with the start.
I'm not gonna do to click max, you know? Help! Help!
Technology.
Oh. You're right! Every time.
Leave it alone.
Do not touch. So when can you
Just
make
click next. Hey, I didn't want to interrupt you guys, but just before with the seasonality chart, does that because I'm quite interested in that part. Does that also have links to the whole permeate free claims that you guys make? Yeah. So
on protein, the fat still gets standardized.
On protein. Yeah. Okay. So we don't see a variation in protein because we add permeate back into it so that it standardizes it across the year, right?
Yeah, and that also affects the calcium claim because about 70% of the calcium is associated with the protein. So as you lower the protein, calcium will also be lowered.
Yeah. There's a relationship between the two, like a linear relationship, right?
Yeah, and some of the other minerals as well are also associated with the protein, like the phosphorus and possibly a little bit of magnesium as well. Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
But until we do some good analysis and we won't know everything.
Yeah.
Because we've had I guess complaints or questions around why milk at certain parts of the year could taste more flavoursome versus other parts. Would that explain through that seasonality chart?
More likely to be flavours that are dissolved into the fat because cows graze on the paddock, and depending on the herbal input in the paddock, the flavours will change, and the herbs and other plants that grow in the paddock are different. I grew up on a dairy farm, and I could tell if my dad moved the cows from one particular paddock area to another one because one was closer to the bush and there were different plants in it, so I could taste it.
Right, okay.
I have a related which I'll ask now. Does the protein and fat content, because you talked about how it varies with the calving season, does that also vary with diet?
A little bit, but it's mainly related to the lactation cycle.
Because I have this idea in my head, and maybe it's a false idea, that organic milk tends to have higher nutritional content levels.
No, that's a myth.
Okay.
Typically, it's least painful.
Yeah.
So often it's standardized to fat is high, protein.
But no higher than a permeate-free.
No. The old claims would have been related when everybody was still permeate standardizing. Yeah. Okay, so if you want to make dairy nutrition claims, there's two parts to that. First, you need to have enough in it, which typically means, for instance, for protein, at least 5 grams or 10% of the recommended daily intake of a vitamin or mineral. Then if you have enough, then you can look whether you can make health claims about those. And then it needs to pass what is called in New Zealand the nutrient profiling scoring criterion, which is a mouthful. But basically, you get penalty points for high energy saturated fat, sugars, and sodium, but you get bonus points for protein, fiber, fruit, vegetable, nuts, and legumes. Typically, milk always passes that, even the higher fat milks, because there's, especially with original, there is enough protein in there to counterbalance that. It is a bit different with yogurts. It depends on your fat and sugar and protein levels on how they are balanced. And sometimes it can just be a minor change that is required to flick you into claimable area. out of non-claimable area. So it's something always to keep in mind when you develop new products, keeping in mind that maybe you want to make claims.
So would you expect that on an original milk today then we could be making it a low GI claim?
Yeah, if you get it tested. Yeah, because I come to that with lactose. There are some database, there is some database information on milk, and I'll show you that. But
Would that be, you know, if we talk about just across the board, like all milk to be low GI, rather than neither fresh milk?
or even chocolate flavored milk can be low GI because there's enough protein in there and things like that, and it still slowly releases the glucose because the lactose takes a while to break down, and we'll get to that. Yeah, but you need to have an official test done. Yeah. But in the scheme of things, yeah, I mean, look at the cost of other things.
Breed, that we know.
Yeah. What's it, 2,000, 4,000?
Well, it's about $4,000 a
Yeah.
year.
Yeah, because it's 2,000 sample and you need a reference sample.
What, $4,000 a year? Anyway,
Sydney does them as well. I don't know what their costs are. So there's a whole ream of possible claims in the Food Standard Code, and you can also make an effort to what is called self-substantiate if you put in a systematic scientific review, which is quite a big ask. Yeah, it has been done for the probiotics. Yeah, and often you do need the support of a supplier of an ingredient because you can't just prove it for that ingredient. You have to prove that it applies to your product with that ingredient. Yeah. And there is text in that legal document, but you don't have to be exactly the same, but you can't emphasize it or make more of it than it is. And if you make a health claim, not for the nutrient content, for instance, if a nutrient content would be, it has a lot of calcium, that's a nutrient content claim. But if you say calcium is good for your bones, that becomes a health claim, and then you need to say as consumed as part of a healthy diet containing a variety of foods. Like you can't build bones only with drinking milk with lots of calcium. It needs to be part of your diet. And then you are not allowed to make comparative claims for vitamins and minerals. So you can't say 40% more calcium than da-da-da-da-da, which has been done, and I drove past the board with it. On the road, a billboard that's still on the bus shelter, I think it was, 40% more calcium. For Metafresh Calci Original, 40% more calcium. No, you are not allowed to make any comparative claims.
come on in.
You just don't want to read the rules. One standard 128.9. If somebody complains, then you take it off. Yeah, that's what you do. You put it on material where it's the easiest to change, like on the website. Don't put it on your pack.
I have not seen the billboard. No, where is it? Everywhere.
It's everywhere.
Really? Where? I mean, I live here.
On bus shelters and yeah.
Haven't seen it. That's the bus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a calculated risk, basically. That's like a lawyer will tell you, this is a 50k zone, you can only drive 50. But of course everybody drives 55. But the lawyer will not officially condone it.
I didn't touch anything this time.
Okay.
That's what
So
every time.
the first entry on a nutrition label is always energy. So most of the energy comes from fats. It's a bit higher. Protein and carbs are same at 17 kilojoules per gram, fiber at 8, and lactic acid with yogurt at 13. And to get to calories, you divide by 4.18. But you can make positive energy claims if you have, for instance, for milk, which would pass the nutrient profiling, and you have at least 420 kilojoules, which is really only 100 calories, roughly. You can say milk is an actual energy drink with B vitamins and list the B vitamins. You can actually make more claims than an energy drink can make about B vitamins. They are not allowed to make B vitamin claims.
Why?
Because it's specifically excluded in the standard. Because that product sort of sneaked into the commercial area without it being outside the regulation, and then the regulation got a little bit rewritten to put that in, the caffeinated drinks, but they are not allowed to list the percentage RDI of the B vitamins on the can, while milk can. Yep. And there is the diet type claims, which is low energy you can't meet with dairy. They're really just focused on low sugar soft drinks, but because you've got protein in milk, you can't achieve that really, really, really low calorie level. It's just like just flavoured water. Reduced in light, of course, 25% less diet, at least 40% less energy, and again, you need to meet the nutrient profiling thing. But you're not allowed to imply slimming. Okay, the proteins in milk. So we've got the casein protein, and you've heard about A2 beta casein. Well, there is alpha casein, beta casein, and kappa casein in chemistry. It clots with acid, which when we make yogurt, or with rennet when we make cheese. And then the whey protein comes out because that doesn't clot with that. Whey protein is the heat-sensitive part, which gives you the burn on. It's very similar to when you make scrambled eggs. You know how they stick to the pan? Whey protein behaves very similar. And there's a little bit of fat globule membrane that keeps all those milk fat globules floating into the milk without them separating out. It's like a little emulsifier. So the A2 milk, is that science or myth? So that's that beta casein that I was talking about. There is some evidence coming through now, but the other thing is that more and more of the general dairy herds are also moving to higher A2 levels. It used to be roughly 50-50. At the moment, I think it's gone to about 70-30 or something like that. Oh, it depends on the bull selection, basically.
But is that what we...
Yeah,
Ontario will be moving.
yeah. That's what you do. You select your bulls. Yeah. Mm.
I don't know the paper right now, but it makes me think, why would you
Yeah,
change that?
Yeah. Okay, so the high value nutrition research that was set up a few years ago has done a specific project for A2 milk. 2 studies. The first study indicates that it has a positive effect in lactose intolerant young females.
canonizing.
Yeah,
The way they
like
use
even
food.
dietary guidelines now.
Yeah.
So,
So do you think that those dietary guidelines recommend, light milk where possible, do you think that that's likely to change?
yeah, it has already changed in Australia.
Okay. So
Yeah.
you would expect it would continue.
Yeah.
soon.
Yeah, if you're healthy, that's the yeah.
Yeah.
So if you have a cholesterol problem or a fatty acid problem or something like that, you may be told by your doctor to be cautious.
Okay.
Yeah.
It takes a while for these sort of guidelines to
Yeah.
change. They got to
Because dairy products, even full fat, are neutral in terms of coronary and heart disease type things. Yeah.
Because I think right now the blue tops have a lower health star rating than the light blue.
Yeah,
don't they?
that's based on that
Okay.
because that still follows the old paradigm. Yeah.
so they don't that's pushing a stars around.
Yeah, yeah. But then the benefit is you have more fat soluble vitamins there. You have A and D there, and yeah.
Okay.
So there is also a second study that finished in December 2018, and they still haven't published results so far. So they did it with the females and males, which either means they're slow or they can't really get any results out of it. That always makes me skeptic if I see that. You wonder, because maybe the first one was just a fluke. Who knows?
What would happen if we were talking about how all cows will be A2?
Yeah.
What would happen to the A2 company?
Oh, the A2 company is built on all image rather than substance.
So that means that our milk will be A2 as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
And over time.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you might even, at some stage, pre-select pickups of certain milk from certain farms that are already 100% A2. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a little bit more wasteful, so your yields a bit down, which makes it hard to handle organic, for instance, because you've got to clean the whole system out. You can't get carryover in the separators and things like that. But, yeah.
Okay.
So it depends on volumes, yeah. And then there are some people that, in that first study for the females, were intolerant to, they had some digestive discomfort. It was irrespective of the lactose content and even of the beta-casein type. So some people have some underlying sensitivity to milk, not related to A2, yeah, or lactose.
Let me any
Is there any truth in the idea that, if you stop drinking milk for a while and then come back into it, that you're more likely to be lactose intolerant
Yeah.
when you come back?
You lose some of your lactase activity. It's the same as people who don't. I understand that if you don't eat meat for a long time, you lose some of the proteases to digest meats and things like that. It makes it a bit harder. Yeah.
This happened to me. Not
Yeah?
the meat, the milk, the lactose thing. Yeah.
Mm.
For about a year and a half, because of my old colleagues, we all did almond milk for about a year and a half, and then when I joined GF, John Barnett and probably Hamish convinced me to go back onto dairy. And
I'll tell you later why.
And yeah, it was a bumpy ride at the beginning, but now I'm all good.
Yeah. It is very much dose related as well, isn't it? How much you drink.
Oh yeah, because I grew up probably drinking a bowl of milk every day. So, and then previous work for about 18 months, I was off dairy for an extended period of time, and then straight away back and at pretty high dosage as well.
Yeah.
Trying all the
You
different
should-
products. So yeah.
You should have eased into it. Cheese is good. Cheese
Yeah.
does have virtually no
Yeah.
lactose.
Yeah, I've always had consumed yogurt, so yogurt's always been part of my diet. But I just noticed, straight like milk into coffee and things like that was pretty tough at the beginning. Yeah.
Well, the yogurt cultures actually help lactose digestion, plus some of the lactose is already digested in yogurt. Yeah.
Yeah.
So why is protein essential? We sometimes forget what it is. It occurs in all living cells, and it basically makes up the structure and the functions in our body. And one problem is we actually can't maintain stores of it, so we need constant supply and adequate supply and good quality supply, and even more for infants if you're pregnant or lactating or after injury or illness to heal. Our whole body is made up of it, and often we think, oh, protein, oh, that's muscle. But it's not just your weightlifting muscle, it's the skeletal and involuntary muscles as well, like the heart and the gut. And it is quite well known that if you don't consume enough protein, for instance, go on a very strict diet, that your heart actually can thin out and suffer, and people have died from that, I understand. So we really need it for everything: hormones, blood, brain, skin, hair, everything. Every cell in your body needs protein. And it also supports wound healing, and it builds your immune system. Even more so, it builds the immune system in our sleep. And a very old trial was done a while, years ago, where they exposed people to a cold or flu virus, I forgot which one it was, and then they forced some people to sleep very short, and others were allowed full sleep, and the ones that had a short sleep got sick far more than the ones that had adequate sleep. So protein and sleep are important for building that immune system. So how do we get that benefit from protein? Well, protein is made up of amino acids. You may have heard of that at some stage or another, particularly if you're into the sports field area, they will talk about amino acids. So the protein in your body is broken down into peptides, which were built with those amino acids. There are about 20 amino acids in proteins, and some can be made by the body from other things, but 9 of those amino acids are essential. The body cannot make them, so the only way you can supply them to your body is by eating protein that contains those. And in whey protein, you may have heard the story about branched chain amino acids. They also in general milk as well, not just in whey. It's just that whey has built a whole story about those. Then there are other, which are not essential amino acids, but what is called conditionally indispensable. Those are these amino acids that are essential for wound healing. For instance, Abbott's has now brought out a product, particularly to help people with wound healing, which has those amino acids in it. And then there is the amino acid tryptophan, which is really important for sleep. Abbott's Pharmaceuticals.
Oh,
Yeah.
we know Abbott's is a bread brand.
No, the pharmaceutical company in the US. Yeah. It's got those amino acids in it, even though they're not essential. When you have wound healing and issues around that, they made quite a concentrated product, I think, just with those amino acids and a few other bits and pieces. For instance, diabetics can have issues with wound healing. Nutrition. Yeah. And probably, focus maybe on older people as well. So the amino acid tryptophan, which is one of the essential amino acids, which is in dairy, is a precursor for the sleep-inducing compounds, serotonin, so it makes you feel happy, and melatonin. You probably can't make those claims, but some people will know about it. Yeah. So why dairy protein? It's a really high quality protein because, like most animal proteins, it contains all those essential amino acids, and at the full ratio which is needed for growth and maintenance of children, and maintenance of adult bodies as well. Plant proteins are often deficient or quite low in one or more of these essential amino acids. So to have a good balanced plant diet, you need to be conscious of combining different sources of plant protein so they compensate for each other.
So they don't plant themselves into the whole.
No, often we'll get to that. Yeah, yeah. For instance, if you have, and that is often done, for instance, in diets as well, you need the peas and the rice protein, because one, I think, is deficient in methionine. I forgot what the other one is deficient in. But then they sort of complement, and together they're better than just by themselves. And that's why a good balanced diet, if you go to plant proteins, is really important, because if you just stick to one thing, then you won't get that. So how is protein quality measured? What they do is they check what that amino acid profile is, and then the one that's missing determines the score, because that's the lowest common denominator, and then you look how it gets digested, and then they check that out. The FAO, World Health Organization, has got a big paper on protein on their website, if anybody wants to dig further into it. So it's a combination of how good is it, and can you digest it, and can the body take it up? Yeah. And so much so that in the US and Canada, what you need to do is you need to multiply the protein that you have in there times the score, and that needs to be high enough to make a protein claim.
So we don't need to do that.
No, we don't need to do that. So irrespective of how good that quality is, you can make a protein claim. You can make we'll see in the next one, or one of them. So what is the lack? If you don't have enough protein, typically not so much a problem in the typical Western diet where people eat meat and things like that, but it can be a problem if people go on very severe restricted diets, and it's also a problem with people that have had bariatric surgery. They are really struggling to get enough protein. And unfortunately, some people take advantage of that by promoting proteins like collagen, which are deficient totally in one amino acid, and then say, oh, this is your protein, you can eat that, and it's easy to digest. And
so it's fair to say we don't have a lack of protein.
typically not in the Western diet, no. At the moment anyway. But if you go on special diets or fasting diets or have absorption difficulties intestinally, maybe people with colostomy bags and things like that, I don't know, depending on where the bag is, definitely it's an issue with bariatric patients. And I think there is a difference between if somebody has the top maintained and bypassed, or whether it's sleeves where the whole stomach is just made smaller, because the dynamics of that absorption are a little bit different. Yeah.
I think we talked about the needs as well last time, Eddie. But I think you mentioned it as well in your brand plan about people have different needs throughout stages of life.
Yeah.
So some people can afford to go off protein for a while if they're at a certain stage of life. But for children,
You
growing,
can't. You can't.
if you do, want to choose this diet, you have to be
Yeah.
careful choosing the
yeah.
supplements and everything.
Yeah. So if you can't take supplements for that.
Oh.
You can't take supplements for protein. It's
No,
like
I mean, other vitamins, I'm thinking about
Yeah.
the rest of it.
but that's never compensating for protein. Like, for instance, somebody was on a hunger strike somewhere, or he had taken vitamin supplements. Well, actually, it's protein that you need every day. You actually store more of vitamins in your tissues and in your livers than you store protein.
So you have to consume protein, like I said, every day.
Yeah. So if you don't look after your protein intake, so you get stunting in growing children. They don't grow up to their full potential. You can see that in the cheese-eating Dutch, how tall they are. I'm not. I'm a different side of the family, which was short. My brothers are way taller than I am. That's how the DNA cookie crumbles. If you're short, you get a more risk for infections. Of course, reduced capacity for physical work, athletic, reduced mental performance, mood, because it affects your, like the serotonin, it affects your brain, it affects your sleep, fighting off things like chemicals or other challenges to your body become more challenging. Longer term is for instance, muscle wastage, particularly in the elderly, sarcopenia it's called. It influences your fertility. If people are on a real restricted diet, their fertility drops away. Reduced bone strength. Protein is important for bones as well. Immunity, everything. Yeah, you do need that protein. So let's look at that protein quality. I've picked out the tables from the Canadian legislation. So you can see that almonds have a really low efficiency ratio, 0.4. So relative to milk, the quality of that protein is only 16% of that of milk at 100%. So barley, beans, you can see all the animal products, they're around 100 or 108. Egg is really good, 122, it's even better than dairy. But gelatin or hydrolyzed collagen is 0 because it misses one essential amino acid. And I've highlighted some of the common plant proteins, and you can see for pea 48, rice 60, soy 18, wheat 30. Again, all based on that combination of digestibility and the amino acid profile. So you can't equate the protein in bread with that of milk. But it could well be that if you combine it, that milk has some more of the surplus that the bread is missing, so together you're fine. And that's the sort of thing you need to do when you look into the plant-based area. You need to balance those things.
What is an anti-nutrient factor?
Oh, those is like in bread, for instance, you have them, the phytates. They reduce the absorption of the protein because they bind stuff. Yeah. There's a lot of them around. There's a lot of research going on about that as well, but I haven't really delved into that. It's a comment that comes through quite often. Yeah. So if you compare dairy milk versus plant milk, at the top I've put the MetaFresh Original with 3.9 protein. It has an efficiency ratio of 2.5. So the relative protein quality in that 100 ml, if you multiply the two, is 9.75, 1 glass of milk. Now let's pick that almond milk that you used to drink. 0.6 gram of protein efficiency of 0.4, relative protein quality of 0.24. So you need to drink a bucket full. Were you doing that?
I like how you put the milk in quotation marks.
Or milk. Yeah. So a lot of these are just a singular source of that protein. If I was looking at plant milk, I would always combine different sources of protein to get a more balanced amino acid profile. So you get a much better quality. Yeah. Even the permeate cow's milk.
Can you just explain that protein efficiency again? Like I kind of get it, but like in layman terms, the protein.
Okay, the protein efficiency, yeah, is determined by how well the amino acids profile meets the need of a human body. And then it gets measured against the one that is most deficient in it, because you need all of them in that ratio that is needed for the human body. If one is really low or missing, then the whole quality drops by. And then you look at the diet. Yeah.
Can I interpret it as the human body has a better, like, can absorb that protein better?
That's the digestibility. It might digest it reasonably well, but if something essential is missing, the quality is just not there, because you need all of them. They're essential for the human body.
The measure of complete.
Yeah. Yeah.
How complete. Okay.
Yeah. And what you need in amino acid profile changes a little bit through stages of life. It is slightly different for infants and growing children, and then it stabilizes for adults. Yeah. But I was quite surprised myself when I did the calculation how wide apart it, because I've always known almond milk is really low in protein. But when you then also look at the poor quality of it, it really emphasized that. Yeah. Mm. Some of the others are a bit better, I think.
Yeah, like soy is pretty good.
Yeah, soy is pretty good.
Soy is pretty good.
Yeah.
That's probably the only one.
And that's why in the dietary guidelines, soy milk counts, but the other milks don't. Yeah.
Daniel has a question about the hormone in soy. The hormone.
Or the phytoestrogen. Yeah.
People get upset about that. Is that something that they should get upset about?
You should never, unless you are absolutely dairy intolerant, feed your infant soy. There is evidence that it affects fertility and things like that, and build up of their body.
What about
in infants?
What's an infant until age 2?
Don't know. Yeah, but it's definitely infant formula. You only really want to change not because you think it's trendy or cool, only if there's a really clinical indication that you don't tolerate dairy.
What about in adults?
It is. Some people say that it has benefit if you're menopausal because it gives you other estrogen. Some guys have been anxious that they whether they would be growing breasts.
That's really funny. Well, not if you're a guy.
Maybe if you want to have a bigger cup size, I don't know. Yeah. I don't know. There is quite a bit of research around. I haven't really kept up to date with it. Yeah.
Wonderful.
Okay, so there is now, because of the move to plant milks in other research articles, there is now becoming a concern where people fully replace dairy milk with plant milks. And this was just a screenshot from an article. That even with a lot of the alternative milk products, still there is only a third contained a similar calcium content to cow's milk, let alone looking at all the other nutrients that we know that are in there. So if you're serious about making plant milk, you've got to add a lot more, like vitamin A, B2, B12, iodine, and things like the ones that are highlighted before as well. Plus protein quality, that's another thing. But since most of us have already a reasonable good balance of protein in the diet, say if you're a flexitarian and you decide to replace milk with plant milk, the risk is far less than if you're a vegan. Yeah.
I think Annie was saying if you want to have a point of difference in your plant milk, you want to go there. You want to do a blend, right?
Yeah, you want to do a blend, and you want to fortify with all those different nutrients.
That's how to make it.
Yeah, so you can make a case that you've got a good nutritional quality. Yeah, and you need much more protein than 0.6 or 0.4% or something like that. The only reason that almond milk looks milky is because it's got emulsified almond oil in there. That gives that scatters the light. The little oil globules that scatter the light, not the protein. That's why skim milk it's almost translucent almost. That doesn't have the fat that scatters the light. Yeah. Okay, so that's also why in the current food regulations it quite clearly states that for lower protein and lower fat levels, there needs to be a statement about its suitability as a milk replacement, either for the under 5-year-olds if it's got less than that protein, and definitely for under 2-year-olds, even if it's has that protein level, it also needs the fat level. A young growing child needs the fat to grow; it needs the energy. So what sort of claims can you make about protein? You need to have enough in a serving, and then it's a source. And a good source is 10 grams per serving. The serving size is not prescribed, but should be reasonable. You can't expect people to drink a whole litre. But 250 ml is fine. It doesn't need to be the legal 200 ml reference quantity. Increased claims, protein boosted, 25% more, but there needs to be already 5 grams in the serving. You can't say, oh, I've got double the protein content and gone from 0.1 to 0.2. To avoid that sort of thing. And the comparative claims you can only make with similar type of foods. For instance, you could compare cheese with tofu, milk. You can compare dairy milk with plant milk, but you can't compare, or what people did, bananas on potassium with something else. And
That's bread and cheese.
no.
Yeah, then.
No. You can do cheese with egg. They're concentrated protein foods. Yeah. It needs to be similarly consumed in the diet. Yeah. So breads you can compare with each other, and crumpets and other flatbreads.
Can you compare bread and rice?
Possibly, yeah, they're carbohydrates. Probably. Yeah. And you can compare pasta with rice and quinoa.
Oh,
Yeah.
Similar.
Yeah, there need to be a similar consumption type of food. So what claims are permitted if you have enough of the serving and you pass that nutrient profiling score? You can talk about tissue building and repair, cell regeneration, muscles, bones, growth of bones, maintenance of bones, growth and development of children. But unless you start self-substantiating, claims that float around like it sustains you longer, and a lot of people have lodged that claim, it's not pre-approved. Sorry.
Oh, no, that was more of a breed.
Which one?
Yeah.
Oh,
And keto friendly. You're actually not allowed to make keto claims. The MPI is clamping down on that quite strongly.
why this is they think keto diet is not healthy?
No, keto is an implied health claim.
So what is that? Keto explain what that is.
If you say keto friendly or suitable for keto diet, or
Does he call it keto?
yeah,
What? Yeah, what?
then MPI will tell you off.
Oh well, look forward to that one.
I've told you about that. I passed my comment on.
So has the people in the market that have got keto products out there now been told off?
Yes.
Is it?
Yep.
It's still on the market.
Yeah, but they are, especially now with COVID, they are actually given time to change their packaging. The next pick run will have. So what one client has done is temporarily
Anyway.
they've done the packaging and put a sticker on it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hunger reducing, prevents muscle aging. Cheese is good for dental health. Sure, it may be true, but it's not a pre-approved claim. Tryptophan for hot milk makes you sleepy. No. Come on.
Sorry, Annie, it's because I clicked something earlier. Yes.
Okay, so if you were looking, for instance, at a sports drink, you could emphasize the protein and the branched chain amino acids. I've roughly calculated those from values that I have on file. And they appear in milk as well. It's not just in whey protein.
Oh, no.
Okay?
Sorry.
And chocolate milk is actually a really good recovery drink for athletes because it's got a right combination of carbohydrates and protein, which you need for recovery after exercise. And it's low GI, and it's definitely better than sports drinks.
But does chocolate milk have the BCAA?
Yeah.
Does it? Oh
Yeah.
my God, I've been wasting money on BCAA. I could have just drank chocolate milk.
Oh, any milk.
Oh, no.
It's because it doesn't get talked about and only gets talked about by sports people in whey protein. Yeah, whey protein is slightly higher than general milk protein. Branched chain amino acids. Yeah. So it's the isoleucine, leucine, and valine.
And
Yeah.
BCAA is part of the essential amino acids.
Yes.
But why do you talk about these three separately?
Oh, but that's, say if you were doing a story to story, it's just an example of how you can focus your communications with sports people that are into branch chain amino acids and say, hey, wait a minute, guys, this is what our milk has as well.
And for sports people, they care about the BCAA
because
it helps with recovery.
and build up of muscle.
You're telling me I've been wasting my money?
Ah, you got sucked in.
I really did. Watermelon
It's
flavor.
lack of knowledge.
And I work in dairy.
Well, it's something that doesn't get talked about. Yeah. So if you wanted to make a hot milk for sleep story, milk has got magnesium. It's got the tryptophan, which people say helps. You can't say anything about it. You can say it has it in it. You can't make a claim about tryptophan, but you can say as part of the protein we have tryptophan, and you leave the people to Google it themselves to figure out what it is. And magnesium, of course, lots of people pay for magnesium supplements to sleep. Wouldn't it be much nicer to drink chocolate milk than pop a tablet? Okay. Any questions here?
So where are you going to start, Daniel, with your plan? What are you going to
Okay, yes it is. There it is.
It's interesting. Lewis Road Creamery has just started doing some advertising around their chocolate milk for recovery.
I did a quick calculation for the Puhoi one, and because chocolate and cocoa have magnesium, so that if those calculations roughly are correct, Puhoi chocolate milk is rich in magnesium. For your sleep.
So you're telling me if I drink milk at night, I would be sleepy?
It may help.
It may help. Yeah.
You're right. It may.
And your branch chain amino acids. We could do both.
I'm going to try this and stop taking my supplements.
But you know, lots of people talk about having whole milk for the good.
Yeah.
I just sort of become old like that. Try it.
No, it's not.
For a week and
It's
see
the
what happens.
tryptophan and the
Does the
magnesium.
warmth make a difference?
Possibly. It's soothing. I tried the Puhoi milk yesterday warm.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
It is.
Because that's one thing people sometimes forget. If they develop a chocolate milk, they should check what it tastes like hot. Because sometimes some of the flavors you put in there, they are really horrid. They're like musty old socks if you heat it up. Yeah.
Which one is you heat up?
The Puhoi Belgian.
Oh,
Beautiful. Yeah, beautiful. Yeah.
So we could either have a break or we could power through. So we've just finished protein. We have fat, and then carbohydrate, and then vitamins and
Okay,
minerals.
come on, stretch your legs.
Right.
You might have to read.
Might as well.
Sippy, we're just going to take a bit of a break. Is that okay with you?
5 minutes?
5 minutes?
Still there?
Sure, yeah, sure.
Yeah. We'll be back in 5 minutes.
All right.
So let's
yeah.
stop.
We'll stop.
Alright. Good time to reset the Zoom counter too.
Right. Let me reset it. I will reset it and come
Alright.
back in 5. See you
Alright,
soon.
cool. See you guys, bye.